Thank you very much, everyone. It's great to be back here in Winnipeg. As a prairie boy, I always feel kindred spirits, and contrary to some popular opinion in some places, you can't see Winnipeg from Calgary, even though it's very flat between the two cities. But both Winnipeggers and Calgarians feel at home when they're in each other's cities. So I'm especially happy to be here today at Fast Air, where Dylan Fast and his incredible workers are doing Certified Transport Canada approved maintenance, repair, overhaul on the Gulfstream, Hawker, Challenger, King Air, West Wind, Piper, Cessna, Bell 206 series helicopters, and much more. These are extremely qualified workers with real brain power, exactly the type of people we need to rebuild our country after the lost Liberal decade. You know, we have some incredible people who are with us today, including, I should also point out Marty Morance's incredible work fighting against anti-Semitism. I wanted to say that he's been a leading champion fighting anti-Semitism on the floor of the House of Commons. We have Raquel Dancho, who's been fighting crime, pushing to put criminals in jail and keep the streets of Winnipeg and Canada safe. Thank you very much, Raquel. Brendan Leslie was elected in a recent by-election with a huge mandate from his people. Ted Falk, a very important member of a lot of different committees. I worked with him on finance. He's a businessman, a patriot, a great Canadian. Dan Mazur, one of the greatest experts on environment. We have James Bazan, our Shadow Minister of Defense, who's helping rebuild our military. And we have, I'm not going to go through all the candidates not yet elected, because they're going to be doing incredible things for all of us as well. And I can't wait to work with each and every one of them with a solid Manitoba contingent, because we need each and every one of them to fight for Canada first, for a change. It's been a hard decade for Canadians. Wages are down, costs are up, crime is everywhere, and our economy is weak and under the American thumb after the lost Liberal decade. And now they think they deserve a fourth term in power. You know, imagine, today you spend more on taxes than on food, clothing, and shelter combined. You know, we as Conservatives want to unleash the strength of our mighty workers, unleash our economy, and put our country first for a change by delivering tax fairness for everyone. Let me describe the problem we have right now. We have a lot of traveling trades workers. They might live in Timmins and go and work in Fort Mac. They might be from Winnipeg but go to the East Coast offshore. They might live in Quebec and head out to Kitimat, northwest British Columbia, to help with the LNG Canada project that the previous Conservative government approved. But they can only write off a total of $4,000 a year in costs for their travel. Some of them spend tens of thousands of dollars traveling across the country, but they can't claim it. We have a very simple principle in our income tax system. You get to write off the costs you incur to earn the income that's being taxed. Very simple. But they can't do that. On the other extreme, CEOs, globalist bankers, and other jet setters not only have the ability to write off the full cost of transportation required, they can write off luxurious private jets that they don't need to earn income. Yes, of course, business people have to travel to market their products, to establish relationships, to check on their supply chains, of course. But you can do that by commercial. A luxurious jet is a personal indulgence that should not be subsidized by the tax system, especially when our workers are being shortchanged. And so today, I'm announcing, in the spirit of putting Canada first and backing boots, not suits, our Conservative government will pass the Tax Fairness for Traveling Trades Workers Act, which will allow trades workers to write off the full cost of their food, transportation, and accommodation to go anywhere in Canada doing their jobs. There will no longer be a $4,000 cap. They will not have to stay overnight in order to be eligible for the write-off, and they will only have to travel 120 kilometers for the write-off to be eligible rather than the current 150 kilometers. This will allow a pipe fitter who's going to a job in another province to claim all the costs that are needed for him to go and do that job. And more importantly, that will bring down their taxable income and bring down their tax bill. so that they bring home more of each dollar they earn. At the same time, we will get rid of the tax subsidy for luxurious corporate jets. As Prime Minister, I will amend the Income Tax Act so that corporations cannot write off luxury jets. Rather, each flight will only be eligible for a write-off of the equivalent of a commercial airfare. This, of course, will not apply to charter flights that are designed to get workers into remote areas. You see some of these planes back here. I would not be surprised if they are used. There are some mines and other locations where we need to get our trades workers. They get on these planes, and that will continue to be an eligible expense to write off so that our people can get where they need to get to build what we need built. Now, we can ensure that Conservatives will always put Canadian workers first for a change. And we know that this is important now, more important than ever, because for the first time in Canadian history, the people who build our homes cannot afford to live in them. More money is spent for a new home on bureaucrats in government who block the home than on the carpenters, electricians, and plumbers who build it. Our workers have been under assault by the Liberal government C-69, which blocks pipelines, mines, and other key projects. The energy cap, which will stop Alberta and Saskatchewan and Newfoundland from growing their oil and gas sector. The anti-nuclear agenda of Stephen Guilbeault, still a Liberal minister, trying to block power stations and small modular nuclear reactors. It takes 17 years to get a mine approved in Canada. Meanwhile, a small corporate elite takes Canadian money out of our country into other places. $500 billion of net investment has flown to the United States, more than has come back. Of course, no one is a greater example of selling out Canada to fill his pockets than Mark Carney himself. He moved his headquarters from Canada to New York City just 6 days after Trump first promised tariffs. He supported a carbon tax in Canada while profiting off U.S. coal. He testified in a parliamentary committee against the Northern Gateway pipeline, all while his company invests in pipelines in the Middle East. And of course, he jets around in private comfort, luxurious planes, all while his company breaks unions, had 41 infractions against labor rules, according to the U.S. Labor Bureau, denied coal miners their insurance benefits as they were dying of black lung. And, of course, we all know that if he is given a chance, he will continue these anti-worker globalist policies. And don't forget that replacing Justin Trudeau with his economic advisor and hand-picked successor will only mean giving Liberals a fourth term in power. It will be the same Liberal ministers, the same Liberal MPs, the same Liberal strategists, and the same Liberal promises they've been breaking for the last 10 years. Only difference is that now we will have an even weaker and more conflicted and compromised leader in Mark Carney. The last 10 years were about the Liberals. The next 10 years need to be about you. And that's why we need to put Canada first for a change. We need someone who can be trusted to stand by his word. On this point as well, Mark Carney cannot be trusted. We learned that he'll be saying all kinds of things over the next month to try and trick Canadians. But this is a man who says whatever he has to. We just learned yesterday that he plagiarized to get his way through university. The National Post, the London Telegraph, and the Times of London all reported at least 10 instances of plagiarism in his PhD thesis. He cheated to get his credentials, and now he will say whatever he has to get power. My vision is to stand up for the same things I've been saying for 10 years and doing the 10 years before that. Conservatives have not changed the direction one iota. We've always been for axing the industrial carbon tax and all of the carbon tax for everyone, everywhere, for good, for a change. We've always opposed the anti-energy laws because we want to unleash Canada's production here at home. We have always said we want to approve LNG plants to ship our prodigious energy overseas and bring home hundreds of billions of dollars that does not rely on the U.S. We've always said we wanted to cut income tax, and we have restated that in our platform with a plan to cut income tax by 15% for the average worker in Canada. We always said we want to get taxes out of the way to build homes our youth can afford, and so we reiterate we will axe the GST on new homes to save people up to $65,000 on the cost of a home. We've always said we want to stand up for safety in our communities. We will repeal the catch and release hug-a-thug liberal laws that have unleashed crime on the streets of Winnipeg. We will lock up repeat offenders. And in the case of serious violent offenders, fentanyl dealers, human traffickers, gun smugglers, they will get life sentences. They will only come out in a box. We will rebuild our borders and secure our military future with solid funds and a solid recruitment for the brilliant young men and women who protect all of us. In other words, we will put Canada and Canadian workers first for a change by restoring Canada's promise, a promise that anyone from anywhere can do anything, where hard work gets you a great life on a safe street, in a beautiful house, under our proud flag, Canada first. Let's bring it home. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to questions. Please say your name and outlet.
Hi there, Eddie Huban, City News, Winnipeg. I just have a question about two key infrastructure projects. The Port of Churchill, which the federal government recently contributed or promised $175 million in funding for maintenance and things of that nature. And then the North End Sewage Treatment Plant, another project that the federal government has contributed over $150 million in funding. And even with that, it's still drastically underfunded. My question is, if elected, would your government be continuing to support these projects financially and picking up the tab of what the current government has promised, so to speak?
We'll honor those funding commitments, but more importantly, we'll get it done. Right now, infrastructure projects are ensnared in endless delay and bureaucracy. So it takes years to get the permitting. We're going to have a simple rule, one and done, one environmental review, one simple application, and in the case of large-scale industrial projects, no more than 1 year to get a permit. I've also announced that we will expand and we will build up the Port of Churchill. I think we need to come up with a plan to export our oil out of the Port of Churchill. Of course, that could be done either by rail or by pipeline. That will not happen unless you repeal this Liberal law C-69. Churchill will never be a big functioning port if the Liberals get a fourth term in power, because their radical environmental agenda will prevent anything from getting built. After the lost Liberal decade, it takes 17 years for a mine to get approved. It is impossible to get a pipeline built. They're capping our oil and gas sector and taxing our industry with a big industrial tax that will drive jobs out. We can't have a fourth Liberal term of costs and crime up and our economy down under the American thumb. We need a new Conservative government to put Canada first for a change by approving pipelines, getting things built, unleashing production, bringing home our jobs so that we're strong enough to stand up to the Americans from a position of strength. Thank you very much.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
Merci. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. On va honorer les engagements de financement, mais en plus, on va les réaliser. Après 10 ans des libéraux, la décennie perdue, la bureaucratie ralentit des projets et empêche la construction. Nous allons enlever le paperasse. Un projet, une revue environnementale, pas de duplication. Deuxièmement, pour ce qui concerne le port de Churchill, il nous faut accélérer des projets permettant d'exporter des produits là-bas, y compris le pétrole. Ça pourrait prendre une pipeline, c'est une idée que j'appuierais. Il n'y aura pas de pipeline avec la loi libérale C-69. Donc, il faut abroger la loi C-69, abroger la loi qui plafonne notre production énergétique, rapidement donner le feu vert au projet et permettre des milliards de dollars d'être exportés du port de Churchill pour servir des marchés outre-mer. Il faut contourner le marché américain. On ne devrait plus être aussi dépendant d'un marché qui n'est plus dépendable. Donc, notre approche conservateur, après 10 ans, on ne peut pas se supporter un 4e mandat pour les libéraux qui ont augmenté les coûts et affaibli notre économie. Il nous faut un gouvernement conservateur qui va mettre le Canada d'abord. Et choses. Merci.
Thank you. We'll now go to the next question.
Steve Lambert from the Canadian Press. Mr. Poilievre, good morning. I've got a question regarding
Good morning.
the landfill search for the victims of a serial killer recently in the Winnipeg area. You said roughly a year ago that you would look to criminal justice reforms to protect First Nations, Indigenous people, offer them more protection.
Right.
What exactly would that mean? And secondly, what would a Conservative government do to help families in similar situations get the search, because the families involved fought for more than 2 years to get a search underway?
Well, first of all, my heart goes out to these families. I can't even imagine the torment that these years have brought them. And I know that the search is necessary, and even though it is very painful for those involved. Unfortunately, First Nations people are disproportionately the victims of violent crime. The lost Liberal decade of catch and release laws has turned loose the same repeat offenders over and over and over again. Yeah, I can only imagine the terror that some communities live in, where an offender keeps coming back to physically attack and even kill members of the community. But constant bail, parole, house arrest, not second or third chances, but 75th chances for the same offender. This crime and chaos is the direct result of Liberal C-75, catch and release, Liberal C-5, house arrest, and there's also C-83, which allows the most brutal offenders, including Paul Bernardo, out of maximum security penitentiaries. Giving the Liberals a 4th term in power will only unleash even more crime, victimization, and drug overdoses for all Canadians. That's why it's time to put Canada and law-abiding Canadians first for a change, with a new Conservative government that will repeal the soft-on-crime laws, lock up repeat offenders for good, secure our borders, and fight against drug addiction. We will, as I said the other day, bring in life sentences for mass fentanyl dealers, gun smugglers, and human traffickers. Human trafficking targets disproportionately First Nations people as well. And that will allow us to protect all the people of our country and put the safety of Canadians first. Thank you.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
Merci. Merci. Tout d'abord, j'offre mon support et nos prières pour les familles qui sont en train de vivre avec cet enfer. Je ne peux même pas imaginer la tristesse, la colère, l'angoisse que souffrent ces familles maintenant. Et on va supporter ces familles-là et on va nous faire en sorte que pour le futur, des familles dans de telles circonstances horribles auront un support pour trouver leurs enfants. Évidemment, les Premières Nations sont souvent les plus grandes victimes de la criminalité. Et c'est en partie le résultat des politiques de libération automatique des pires récidivistes. Les libéraux ont adopté C5 qui permettent aux criminels violents de purger leur sentence dans leur salon à la maison. C75 qui permettent aux criminels d'être libérés il y a quelques heures après leur dernière arrestation, même si ils sont arrêtés des douzaines de fois auparavant, et de permettre Paul Bernardo de quitter une prison maximum pour un médium. C'est ridicule. C'est pour ça que le crime violent a augmenté de 50% pendant la décennie libérale. Si les libéraux sont élus pour une 4e fois, ils vont libérer des criminels encore et la vie va devenir encore plus dangereuse pour tout le monde. Il nous faut un nouveau gouvernement conservateur, qui va mettre les Canadiens respectueux de la loi en premier pour faire changement. On va abroger des lois libérales C-75, C-5, C-83. On va créer des peines de vie pour des trafiqueurs d'armes, de fentanyl et des trafiqueurs des traites humaines. On va aussi mettre des peines obligatoires et on va nier la libération sous caution des récidivistes massifs. En gardant les pires criminels en prison, on va pouvoir protéger les citoyens. Un autre 4 ans pour les libéraux après la décennie perdue sera dangereux. Il nous faut un nouveau gouvernement conservateur qui va mettre les Canadiens et la sécurité d'abord pour faire changement.
Thank you. We'll now go to the next question.
Hi, Melissa Ridgen from Global News and CJOB. Certainly a bigger appetite now for tariff-related talk. Is there something that we can, a strategy shift that we can expect to see from you guys going forward for tariff relief, tariff announcements, that sort of thing? Can you share with us?
Well, we will obviously retaliate against unfair American tariffs and work to eliminate them. But what we really need to do is reverse the weakness caused by the lost Liberal decade. They blocked pipelines, LNG plants, mines, nuclear power, and forced Canadians to give 75% of their exports to the Americans. After the lost Liberal decade, costs and crime are up, and our economy is down under the American thumb. That's why we need to put Canada first with a new Conservative government that will unlock our resources, repeal anti-energy laws, build pipelines, mines, LNG plants, axe taxes for our industry, investors, home builders, and workers, allowing us to bring back the $500 billion that Liberals have pushed out of our country. In other words, we don't know exactly what the Americans are going to do. The president seems to change his mind from time to time, but we know what we can do. What we can do is take back control of our economic destiny, build an economic fortress by bringing home production, unlocking our resources, and standing strong for our economy here at home. Thank you.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup. I should just say one last thing in English, is that the things that I'm calling for here, these are the things that we've been saying for the last 10 years. If you want to question who's actually going to do these things, well, you have to vote for the ones who always stood for it. Because the only way to get conservative policies is to vote conservative. The Liberals will say whatever they have to say to win, but they'll go right back to their radical policies. They have the same Liberal ministers, the same Liberal MPs, the same Liberal strategists, and the same Liberal agenda, no matter what they tell you. The only difference is they have a weaker and more compromised leader, and they've brought on even more radical people, like Gregor Robertson, the former mayor of Vancouver. Like, this guy is totally radical. He wants to distribute free drugs everywhere in the streets. He was against pipelines and all oil and gas. If you think that the Liberals are going to be any different in the next 4 years than they've been in the last decade, then you will be very disappointed. We need a new Conservative government that will put Canada first for a change. En français, on va riposter si les Américains nous frappent encore avec des tarifs injustifiables, mais il faut renverser la faiblesse de la décennie perdue des libéraux. Les libéraux ont bloqué les pipelines, des usines de gaz naturel, des mines, des centrales nucléaires. nous ont forcé de vendre nos produits aux Américains au prix plus bas. Et maintenant, nous sommes plus dépendants sur les Américains que jamais. Si vous pensez que les libéraux vont changer soudainement parce qu'ils changent d'histoire 30 jours avant une élection, vous allez être déçus. C'est les mêmes députés libéraux, les mêmes ministres libéraux, les mêmes stratèges libéraux, les mêmes promesses libérales qu'ils ont brisées pendant 10 ans. Seule différence, c'est qu'ils ont maintenant un chef qui est plus faible et plus compromis que jamais. Mais il y a des députés encore plus radicaux. Stephen Guilbeault n'est pas le seul maintenant. Gregor Robertson, c'est un autre, qui veulent simplement fermer nos industries. Moi, je veux éliminer les taxes carbone pour toutes les industries, abroger la loi anti-pipeline C-69, enlever le plafond sur la production d'énergie, rapidement approuver les barrages des centrales nucléaires et d'autres industries pour pouvoir devenir plus autonome, devenir une forteresse économique afin de confronter les Américains dans une position de la force. C'est ça, mettre le Canada d'abord pour faire changement.
Thank you. We'll now take a question from the phone line, and this will be the last question.
Marianne with Franco.
Bonjour.
Oui, bonjour.
Oui, bonjour. Donc, j'aimerais vous entendre sur la protection du français, premièrement à l'extérieur du Québec. Maintenant que la loi sur les langues officielles a été modernisée, j'aimerais savoir quelle est la prochaine étape pour les francophones hors Québec, selon vous. Et deuxièmement, au Québec, est-ce qu'un gouvernement conservateur interviendrait en Cour suprême dans la contestation de la loi 96?
Sur la dernière question, non. C'est la décision du gouvernement du Québec d'établir ses propres lois dans sa juridiction. C'est le cas pour toutes les provinces, en fait. Nous respectons le bilinguisme, la dualité linguistique des Canadiens à travers les programmes fédéraux d'un océan à l'autre. Et nous allons promouvoir la langue française. Nous allons élargir des programmes d'immersion pour des jeunes anglophones afin de leur permettre d'apprendre le français. J'ai eu l'occasion de le faire après avoir perdu mes racines francophones pendant ma jeunesse. J'ai pu aller à Chicoutimi pour une immersion très précieuse que je veux permettre à plus de jeunes de faire dans l'avenir. Ça va faire partie de notre plateforme électorale. Et nous avons supporté une expansion des droits linguistiques en votant pour la loi sur le bilinguisme à la Chambre des communes. Je sais que le français fait face aux difficultés et il faut le protéger, il faut renforcer nos racines francophones à travers le Canada et les conservateurs reconnaissent que le français, c'est la langue fondatrice de notre pays. Et nous voulons le renforcer, le conserver. C'est ça, être un conservateur, c'est de conserver des choses, des bonnes choses, comme la langue française. C'est ça, mettre le Canada d'abord. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. This concludes the press conference.
Okay. Yeah, we will not be contesting it. Provinces have the right to make their own laws. And we will be standing with, the question was as well, what will we be doing to promote official languages? We support official bilingualism, and we will back up official bilingualism right across the country in all federal services and programs. We will also increase opportunities for young people to do immersion programs so that they can learn French. We need more French speaking right across the country. We want to conserve our languages, our founding two languages, but in particular French, because it is our founding language, and of course it is always a fight to maintain it because of the enormous demographic reality in our continent. But conservatives will protect the French language, will protect official bilingualism, and we will conserve our beautiful country and all that the blessings that it has brought us. That's what it means, of course, to put Canada first. Let's bring it home. Thank you very much.